the YouTube. So, please be silent for a moment. The YouTube. So, please be silent. Okay, right, because there's a little delay, but now it is silent, so it won't mess with us. And Tasha, we can begin. So first of all, welcome to the September JOCO on an unusual night, right? Instead of the second Saturday of the month, this month we're meeting on the last Thursday of the month. And we're wanting to pick up with the conversation we were having on state surveillance in this increasingly tense moment that we're living in a increasingly unstable country. We always want to acknowledge when we start that we do this work on the unceded lands of the Tongva and the Chumash peoples of what is now called Southern California, the Los Angeles Basin, and coastal Los Angeles. Welcome to the JOCO. Mute your mic if you're not speaking, please, and we recommend you keep your video off, both for your own confidentiality. You never know what might be happening in the background. And also to not be a distraction, right, to the speaker on the screen. And we recommend you select speaker view when panelists are speaking, but that of course is up to each Zoom user. Please use the chat or the raise hand icon for questions. And questions are ordinarily taken after each round of panelist responses. Today, we do not have a panel as such, right? We have our one guest that we have invited back to continue the conversation. That panelist is Professor James M. Simmons, professor at Cal State University, Northridge, and also a movement attorney. And I need to make a little change on my screen so I can see the Assata Shakur quotation. Tasha, would you do me a favor? I can't see the whole quotation. Something's blocking it. Do you mind reading the quotation?
Okay. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Thank you. I'll pick it up. The July 29th, 2022 FBI raids of the Uhuru movement in St. Louis, Missouri and St. Petersburg, Florida, and two other activist groups in California and Georgia signaled the state's war footing against dissent. Support for the Uhuru movement has poured out internationally while organizations work at the national level to prepare for looming legal battles. Black people have historically faced state intervention in the Black freedom movement from local and regional police forces working in tandem with federal police agencies. This Thursday evening, we welcome back James Simmons, professor of Africana Studies at CSUN, of law at People's College, and attorney activist for over 25 years to share his perspective on the use of state power, surveillance, white supremacist civil society, and violence to suppress Black liberation work and Black liberation workers. What has been the development of the US apparatus of surveillance in the 20th century, And what are its capacities in this new digital era? What can we do to protect our communications, our work, and our information? Some of our guiding questions.
So thanks, for inviting me back. I hope I can provide some useful information. To folks. I wanted to start off, as I do in school, of course, and talk about this, kind of finish up with this Russian boogeyman. And if I could share the screen, so you don't have to look at my mug, you could look at something better. Okay, so all right, so this Russian boogeyman, this Countering Malign Russian Activities Act, and what stage does it set for Black descent nationally and internationally? The historical precedents for this kind of legislation. Is it capable? Is it a capable instrument to support something like the Un-American Activities Committee in Congress? The anti-communist purges in Hollywood and in all levels of government. And then what kind of effects can and will it have on organizing nationally and internationally, along with solidarity movements? There's an article, the South African Development Community, where African governments got together, and the majority of them were against this U.S. Law on countering Russian activities. And they reiterated that Africa is not for sale, and that should development, whatever development that occurs in Africa should be in the interest of African people and those African nations, not for the United States, not for Russia, not for China. That development should be for the benefit of Africans. And for so long, Africa has been exploited and plundered. And this new law just follows that tradition. There has been a long history of the United States, and we're not going to talk so much about other countries because we're talking about the United States right now. They're not the only ones, but there's a facade of where we're trying to prevent a Soviet takeover, or where we don't want this Russian or Chinese influence, when I think the real deal is they want to continue the exploitation of Africa and its natural resources. And traditionally, over hundreds of years, they extracted human resources. So they could have, the United States was built in large part on slave labor.
Right.
So you say, well, we're trying to stop the Russians. Oh, that's a good thing. Well, no, is it a good thing? It's not necessarily a good thing for the Africans. Africans have sovereignty. They should be have the right to self-determination without outside interference, and whether that's from Russia, China, France, Belgium, whatever. but the United States in particular is firmly saying we're going to punish African nations that deal with Russia. It's like, is that for the benefit of the African people, or is it just for the benefit of the United States and the rest of the West? And so when we look at these laws and U.S. policies, there is a historical backdrop. I guess we went over some of it last time, but the interest and the well-being and the development of African people is secondary at best. What is first and foremost is the interest of the material and strategic interest of the West, led by the United States. So we could go back to this National Security Memorandum 39, the Tar Baby Memo. And that's not a joke. The Tar Baby Memo by National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger, later to become Secretary of State, basically held that U.S. interests in the region are important but not vital. Does not have vital security interest in the region. Well, that's odd, considering their behavior, where they were arming counter-revolutionaries and neo-colonial colonial puppets and murderers, people who were anti-democracy, people who helped put or keep Africa impotent and underdeveloped. And it points out this article. This is a study. It said the U.S. had basically two options. One, to side with the African nations and condemn the white racist regimes and colonial regimes that remained in the continent at that time in the 60s and 70s, including Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, including South Africa, Republic of South Africa, which had a criminal regime, anti-democratic regime, anti-human regime. And so he side with Africa and go against the interest of these racist white minority regimes, or side with the white minority regimes against the Africans and alienate the Africans. And the U.S. in its this policy picked the second option. So they put some a veneer of supporting African majority rule, but the U.S. military, the U.S. government, the NATO firmly supported the white racist regimes in Rhodesia and South Africa, and the colonial government in Mozambique, Angola, Guinea-Bissau, Cape Verde, and try to make it look like, oh yes, we're for African liberation, when they were anything but. And it's this Tar Baby Memo was generated, was the first real expression in Southern Africa of what was to come. And that included helping to fund counter-revolutionary reactionary forces in Angola and Mozambique, to where Angola and Mozambique had these high rates of amputees, like in Afghanistan, due to anti-personnel weapons blowing off the limbs of the people, including children, killing them. So once again, the interest of the United States superseded the interest of the Africans, just as this current manifestation of US policy. Not so much interested in the Africans, very interested in the mineral and natural resources. Okay, we'll get back to this. The assassination, if we go back to the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, it's not the first assassination that took place on the African continent. And we can include Amilcar Cabral, we can include others. But the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, who was a strong advocate of Pan-Africanism, of the developing Africa for Africans, a democratically elected prime minister, but Belgium and the United States saw fit to have him assassinated. More has come out since this article was written in 2002. And those documents were declassified. But rather than allow the people of Congo to develop their natural resources, they would rather kill this leader elected in a democratic way. And we see the results of this even today. The African responsible for killing Lumumba was a guy named Mobutu. I know a lot of you are familiar with. He ruled with an iron fist. He sold mineral rights. He sold land rights. Whenever there was an uprising, he'd call in the French or whoever. He was supported and paid by the CIA, and he was a billionaire, one of the richest men in the world, in a country that dirt poor, where the people on the street, the people in the population, dirt poor. And so once again, US policy in Africa led to anti-democracy, anti-development, working in the interest of the West and the United States once again. So if we're going to analyze this, and I don't understand the Congressional Black Caucus if the members voted for this madness without looking at the history, because I can't imagine that they looked at history of US involvement in Africa, US policy in Africa, and come up with the conclusion that there needs to be some kind of anti-Russian policy. Well, it seemed like there should be more anti-French, anti-Belgian, anti-US policy, anti-British policy. They're the ones who have been the drivers of what has amounted to genocidal acts and destabilizing acts, and especially in Congo, where and I might have mentioned this last time, where I look at Congo like this could have been approaching Wakanda. Whatever kind of strategic minerals, riches you can think of, most of them are located in Congo, the so-called heart of Africa. And instead of stability and peace and prosperity and progress, there has been nothing of war. And just like in the 19th century, when King Leopold massacred millions of Congolese, in the last 60 years, millions of Congolese have died. So the West, especially the United States, could counter what was then the Soviet Union. They thought. That's what they said. but it was a mineral grab, natural resources grab, and damn the people. The assassination of Thomas Sankara and the complicity of France and the CIA, and again, local puppets, corrupt officials. Sankara was responsible for pushing this anti-corruption campaign, responsible for pushing the idea that they were going to call Upper Volta, Burkina Faso. It's like land of the upright men and women. But they saw him as a communist. They saw him as, again, a tool of the Soviet Union, Russia again. And this whole anti-communist thing in Angola, in Congo, in Burkina Faso, which led to so much misery and death. I don't think it's an accident that it actually wound up with the natural resources in those places they prevailed falling into the hands of the West. So here we have the Los Angeles 8. Well, these are Palestinians. What does that have to do with anything? Again, they were saying that they used the old anti-communist excuse. They were passing out magazines of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Like, this is a free country, right? We have freedom of the press, freedom to read. They were accused of supporting world communism, whatever the hell that means. Supporting Palestine turns into supporting world communism. And you see the sister, that's Julie Mungai, very sharp woman from Kenya. But for 20 years, they tried to deport them. They raided them suddenly, and that Julie, the man she's holding hands with, a Palestinian man, the FBI moved in next door, put a mic through the wall so they could listen to what was going on in their bedroom. It wasn't a one-time thing. It wasn't just a couple of times. They moved in next door and installed a microphone so they could see what was going on in their bedroom. They failed. I mean, the United States government in deporting them. So for 2 decades, they tried to get rid of these people. Again, not that they were dangerous, they were passing out a magazine. They were passing out a magazine. And the idea that they were supporting, so-called supporting world communism was utterly ridiculous. And it was shown, of course, that even going through the government, and I said, oh yeah, it was a great day for justice. Well, how were they going to recover after 2 decades of trying to of instability? So the question is, can these things be used? Can this Countering Russia Act, Countering Russia and Africa Act be used? Well, of course it can. And it's shown in this. This is an example. Even people organizing with the ANC. Remember, the United States government classified Nelson Mandela as a terrorist.
Absolutely.
And in the independence ceremonies, when they got rid of the apartheid government, ANC won the elections, they said, you know, we really don't want you to invite Gaddafi and Castro to your ceremonies. And a right-thinking Nelson Mandela said, these people helped liberate us. Don't get us to talking about what you did,
Okay.
because you supported these racist dogs in this apartheid regime, this white minority government, this murderous anti-African government. So don't you tell us who our friends are. These people helped us get liberated. What did you do? Same thing with Namibia. Chester Crocker, who was head of African affairs, he's walking around today talking about his greatest achievement was helping to liberate Namibia. He delayed the liberation of Namibia because it wasn't in the interest of the United States. They were, Namibia was trying to throw off the illegally occupation by the racist South African regime. And while the United States saw fit to invade Iraq, they said because Iraq violated a UN resolution, and so they had to invade to protect democracy or independence or some other nonsense. Namibia had been illegally occupied by South Africa since the end of World War I. The end of World War I, and the United States didn't see fit to put pressure on South Africa to, and it had been declared illegal after, I believe, World War II. They said this is an illegal occupation. The United States didn't move a finger because it didn't fit in their interest. So the idea that that the United States has all of a sudden changed heart, I think is wrong-headed and defies the history of US relations and US policy in Africa.
Excellent. That's so funny. You know, it was worthwhile to defend what the monarchy in Kuwait.
The democratic regime in Kuwait, you mean? I mean, you're
Yes,
fighting for
right.
democracy, right?
Yeah, that's right. The well, that was a great, really review, right, of what we went through the last time, right? Part one of this conversation. So I'll go, you know, right to the question where we left off, which appropriately, right, addresses the international. This Countering Malign Russian Activities Act, and this very pointed attack on the Uhuru movement. What do you think that effect is going to be on other organizations who organize internationally or transnationally, or, you know, go to the World Left Forum, right? A group who may want to go to the World Left Forum, or you know, work in solidarity with other movements internationally.
Yeah, the idea, unfortunately, that the United States is all-seeing, all-knowing. If you do anything against their interests, they're going to get you. If you support African liberation, they're going to get you. If you support Black liberation and self-determination for the descendants of Africa, they're going to get you. And it has a chilling effect. They chased people out of this country in the 60s and 70s. So they land in Cuba. Well, they don't like Cuba. There's a $2 million bounty on the head of Assata Shakur, at least, not counting the state ones. This is the federal. And of course, they have a Black agent announce it. $2 million to get Assata Shakur back. Fortunately, Cuba is made of stronger stuff. Like Namibia and South Africa, they say, you don't tell us who our friends are. The United States, I guess, you know, how they're trying to bargain with Brittany Griner. We have captives and we'll trade you. Well, just like that, the United States had terrorists who blew up airlines, Cuban airlines, killed dozens of people, but they never suggested a prisoner swap because they may say too much. When Manuel Noriega, they invaded Panama, they captured Manuel Noriega. He said, well, wait, I have a defense. I was being paid by the CIA. And I was, whatever drugs, I was because I was helping facilitate, run through my country from Colombia to the United States. They knew it. But there's that competition within the government. The CIA, who it was okay to deal drugs. It was okay for the Mujahideen in Afghanistan to deal drugs, and it was okay for the Contras in Nicaragua to deal drugs. And Noriega was working with the Contras and against the Sandinistas, and it was very clear he was the friend. And when they indicted him, there was a U.S. attorney indicted Noriega. There was somebody in the State Department saying, who is this guy setting U.S. policy? He should play the game. But he didn't, which forced the United States to capture or kill Noriega. And when he wanted to use the defense, hey, I was a stooge for the CIA. They wouldn't let him do it.
Right.
And he died in prison. And we didn't hear a peep out of him because they wanted him to be silent.
Never brought to trial.
Huh?
Never brought to trial.
No, I think he was brought to trial. I think. But he was not allowed to use that defense.
But he couldn't use that defense.
Right.
Was he able? So he was he able to testify?
I don't believe so. I believe, as lawyers usually do, if you get up there, you're going to wind up in worse trouble, and they're not going to believe you. So the United States supporting terrorism against Cuba, supporting terrorism against Nicaragua. And then even in the United States, supporting a corrupt, brutal regimes in Guatemala and El Salvador.
Yeah.
And then in Los Angeles even. And again, because I was there, they're breaking into offices, they're looking at files, taking files, and not stealing anything. And then the death squads from El Salvador putting out death list, and trying to chill the activities in support of the revolutionaries in El Salvador and Guatemala. And those in Guatemala, and they had some of the worst, again, supported by the United States, the worst governments supported by the United States. Tens of thousands of people killed, tortured.
Off the charts, yeah.
So we, again, relating it back to this Africa Act, if it's against US policy, then it's fair game. And when the Escuadron Muerte, I forget, in Los Angeles, when they were putting out these hit lists and breaking into offices, and then it turns out they were doing their work on behalf of the FBI, and maybe freelancing with the hit list, but being tolerated, that madness being tolerated. And you know, I know some of the people, they went to People's College of Law and broke into our offices. tore up the files, left the camera that's sitting there, and then they took a staple or something crazy.
Right.
So no, this policy can lead to people retreating. Like, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to be in trouble.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it can, what do you call it? Subdue dissent,
Mhm.
subdue
So
activity.
the desired effect of the very public spectacle of handcuffing the chairman and vice chair on his name.
Right, right. So this is something that has happened in the past. You know, again, the Black Panther Party being made examples of. The Nation of Islam, again, constantly putting pressure on cracks between the Nation of Islam and other Muslims within the Nation of Islam, within the Black Panther Party. So murderous pressure that results in murder, that results in the breaking up of organizations where they don't want people to join together. Even the Us Panther conflict, they didn't want them to get together. Then this is COINTELPRO, which is passe, no longer exists. And I wish people would stop saying, oh, this is COINTELPRO. No, it's not COINTELPRO. COINTELPRO was basically seen as illegal. Even the FBI is embarrassed about J. Edgar Hoover. They said, oh my God, they renamed the FBI building from the J. Edgar Hoover building to something else because they were so embarrassed that this illegal activity that resulted in people being falsely imprisoned and murdered was done at his behest. And like the slide that was first at the cover slide, he worked on breaking up the UNIA and arresting Marcus Garvey. That was his first anti-Black, as far as I know, first anti-Black liberation operation. So again, can we really expect them? Can we expect the leopard to change its spots?
Is it in leopard's interest?
Yes, if it's in the leopard's interest, yes. Yeah, they'll change. I said, oh, we love Nelson Mandela. Right? Oh, yes, we love the freedom-loving people of South Africa and Namibia. But you see, they haven't said much about Namibia. Namibia freed themselves basically with extreme military pressure. And I was fortunate enough to go there to be an observer under UN Security Council Resolution 435, which allowed independent observers to go. And there was still violence. Again, my contact there was assassinated like 24 hours before I got there. Thank goodness I wasn't there with him. But oh yes, we love democracy. No, you don't.
Right.
Because SWAPO, they were connected with, like ethnically, with UNITA. But the Oshivambo and the I forget the name that the people that UNITA was based in. Ovumbundu, I think. But they were antagonistic politically. UNITA was supported by South Africa.
Right.
SWAPO was fighting South Africa. So it's like, oh yeah, well, you know how those tribes are and that. No, they were trying to liberate themselves. Again, but US policy in Africa ran against liberation, ran against independence. And I mean, how do you hear them talking about SWAPO? Upholding SWAPO as a stable democracy, a prosperous country. one that's not destabilized with war and
Mhm.
famine and all of that? No, because it's not in their interest to do so.
Mhm.
Mm.
I want to, you really have, quite organically transitioned us to the next, right, set of questions, right, with your comment about COINTELPRO and how this is not COINTELPRO.
Right.
But I want to back up just a little bit because you mentioned really called out, right, the Congressional Black Caucus.
Yes.
Who I recall, right, during the 80s anyway, were at least progressive on Southern Africa, right, if not revolutionary. Can you track when that change or the increasing fidelity to U.S. foreign policy?
Well, I think it's probably, for the most part, has been loyal to the U.S. government foreign policy, especially when they're not so insanely racist and anti-African like
Mhm.
Ronald Reagan,
Right.
and George Bush,
Mhm.
and Gerald Ford. They and Nixon,
Mhm.
but the Congressional Black Caucus has not been making any noise. I mean, there were a few, Ron Dellums, for one,
Mhm.
Cynthia McKinney. There are exceptions,
Right.
but for as a whole, these are Democratic politicians who are unaware. It's like Maxine Waters voted to condemn Joanne Chesmart.
Mm.
They said, "Why are you going against Assata Shakur?" She said, "No, I voted against Joanne Chesmart.
Mm.
I wouldn't go against Assata Shakur." I said, "You don't know her name? Come on now."
Right.
And she retracted that. But you should know better. Your staff should know better. And I think there's a failure of this institutional memory.
Mhm.
What is the interest? So, during the last days of the apartheid regime, people didn't come out in front of in support of independence for Namibia, but
Mhm.
the South Africa was more sexy, right? You could go to a demonstration and get your picture in the paper. You could go to a demonstration led by the Free South Africa movement,
Mhm.
which did good work, but it was a Johnny come lately. There were
Mhm.
demonstrations at the South African consulate in Beverly Hills on La Cienega every week.
Mhm.
Free South Africa movement didn't start up doing these kind of demonstrations until the last couple of years
Mhm.
before the fall of apartheid. And yet, when Nelson Mandela came to Los Angeles, all those people who had put constant pressure on the U.S. government and the South African consulate were not invited to the party. We rode on the bus like everybody else to the Coliseum.
Mhm.
So the Congressional Black Caucus, I think, is both a failure of their normal politics
Mhm.
and a failure of being aware. Now, Karen Bass, I don't want to call her out or expose her, but she was involved in this struggle
Mhm.
against apartheid in South Africa. And that's if anything, I love her for it. But these other folks, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. So let's move on then to that, where we were, right? This is not COINTELPRO.
It is not.
So what's the difference then, right? What methods were in use then that aren't in use now? What makes it different? Is it just the illegality that's different now? What they're doing is legal?
Yeah, well, no, it's not. That's not just it. But that's part of it.
Mhm.
What was illegal back then is pretty much legal now. The COINTELPRO was very primitive.
Mhm.
And in spite of popular perception, COINTELPRO was started to basically counter the Communist Party in the United States, the Socialist Workers Party, which was a Trotskyist party, and the Ku Klux Klan.
Mhm.
It was not just an anti-Black thing. It was primarily an anti-white thing. The anti-Black thing, of course, you want to deal with Paul Robeson. You want to deal with other left-leaning Black folks.
Mhm.
But primarily it was those people. Now, after the civil rights movement came up, and then there were these charges that the civil rights movement was basically the work of communist agitators, this whole
Right.
outside agitators and communist, socialist. Martin Luther King was a secret communist, all that old stuff. The FBI started focusing in on that, along with the Nation of Islam.
Mhm.
Who they saw as very dangerous. But COINTELPRO, again, very primitive. Yeah, I'm sure there were phone taps, there were bugs, there was human intelligence.
Mhm.
But they were into dirty tricks.
Mhm.
You know, let's name drop, let's cause a divide between, or exploit a divide between Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X.
Mhm.
Let's exploit that. Let's
Mhm.
break them up. Let's make sure that if there's going to be a split, that it's a violent split. Same with the Black Panther Party.
Mhm.
The COINTELPRO, they started focusing in, they just forgot about the Klan pretty much. And at some point, the FBI, they said there were more FBI agents and informants in the Klan than actual members,
Mhm.
right? And they allowed them to use violence. You didn't see a whole lot of prosecution of the Ku Klux Klan using violence, right? And when they dug up those 3 civil rights workers assassinated in Philadelphia, Mississippi, Cheney, Schwerner, and Goodman.
Mhm.
Remember when they dug up the dam or the dike or whatever, the earthen,
Mhm.
they found something like 17 other bodies. I
Right.
didn't see any big push
Right.
to identify those people or bring the murderers to justice. They said this was a Klan dumping ground. This is where they would put the bodies.
Mhm.
Who are these other people? Did the FBI investigate, or they are just trying to get these people off their back? They're trying to, Bobby Kennedy or whatever. J. Edgar, you got to do something. We're looking bad.
Mhm.
Or whoever was in charge at the time. They didn't do that. But working with the Klan, well, having members within the Nation of Islam and the Black Panther Party, this human intelligence, trying to cause division, trying to have, they said, we want these people to think there's an FBI agent behind every mailbox,
Mhm.
right? Tapping the phones. And then, it's like the mafia. You do it for a minute. Oh yeah, we don't want to be tapped. And then get on the phone and blab everything anyway, or just stand where they can see you.
Mhm.
I know the mafia. They say, yeah, we can't talk on the phone. We'll go to a restaurant. They go to the restaurant, same table, and they just install a bug at the table.
Right.
Above the table so they can hear everything. So COINTELPRO, illegal, but what changed was 9/11, because the United States started like, oh my God, we were involved in these illegal activities and quashing dissent, and then assassinating people.
Mhm.
The United States is not supposed to assassinate people, but they did, and it became an embarrassment.
Mhm.
Now, at the time, they said, "Oh no, no, no! the church committee looking into assassinations. They said, oh yeah, well, there's no evidence the CIA, the United States, was involved in the assassination of Patrice Lumumba. Well, we know that's a lie now.
No, we're right.
Absolutely a lie. And I remember when it came out, something was happening and they put it out the same week. There was some, and it was like a blip in the newspapers.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Mhm.
this idea that the United States doesn't engage in this kind of activity, or that it was only COINTELPRO, is not a factual argument. But after 9/11, it's like there's three things that basically police and police agencies, so-called law enforcement, can do basically anything and people won't complain. Drugs, gangs, and terrorism. You could smash gang members' heads. You could tear up dope dealers' homes and businesses. And with terrorism, you can put them so-called wholesale into a prison in another country and don't give them any rights to due process, and then classify them as enemy combatants. So it doesn't fit in international laws of war, and it doesn't fit in the United States Constitution. Hey, they're in Cuba.
Create a whole new category.
Yeah, just create a whole new category. And then they can't go to court because they can't go to court.
Right.
I said, well, you can't represent them. Well, how are they going to go to court? But you can't represent them. So these little games that have been played, and of course, the San Francisco 8, they drug that up. The members of the Black Panther Party, alleged members of the Black Liberation Army, who's were arrested based on statements made under torture, and then put back in jail, again facing prison 30, 40 years later.
Right.
And it's like, okay, what new evidence do you have? Now, you know, this is just like first year law school stuff. This is first year law school stuff. If there has been a determination that you can't use evidence because it was extracted through torture, it's not reliable. It's a violation of the Constitution. It's a violation of human rights. I mean, they were using all those things that were used later in Abu Ghraib. Water torture. What's it called? Waterboarding. Sleep deprivation. Extreme physical discomfort. Even one of the brothers had pins put through his penis. Cattle prods put under his arms and in his groin. I mean, extreme torture, where they were suffering the rest of their lives. And what's telling is the DA, I guess, in San Francisco didn't want to deal with it. Even the U.S. attorney didn't want to deal with it because it's a losing case. And the Attorney General of California saw fit to prosecute this.
Do you know which Attorney General that was?
See, I was thinking it was your girl in D.C.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was her.
But again, my memory is failing me, but I think it was not her.
Right, it was the previous one.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
But it was a bogus case. And now no one was ever arrested for this torture.
Right.
This is after the ending of COINTELPRO.
Right.
No one was ever arrested, no indictments. And no one had to, no one was held accountable for dragging that up
Mm-hmm.
decades later.
Mm-hmm.
So COINTELPRO used a lot of dirty tricks. Again, caused people to be murdered, caused people to be falsely imprisoned.
Right.
Even Leonard Peltier is still in prison.
Still in prison. Yeah.
Right.
How is that possible? Because, hey, he supposedly killed FBI agents.
Well, that is something that I think that really the pettiness of this government, that they will keep people locked away for decades. That I know some of the folks like these revolutionaries in the 70s in Germany and Italy, did their bombed places, killed people, did
Oh,
their
yeah.
time, and have been and are out. I mean, just the United States, the audacity, right? That you would have the audacity to stand up to the United States, that they are attempting to bury people beneath these prisons and have them get lost to memory.
Yeah, even you see that where they have when they release someone, it's usually they're on the verge of death, and so they're in prison for decades. They let them out,
And they die.
after spending 2, 3, 4 times as much time as a regular social criminal. But as a political prisoner, they wait till they're almost dead. And you have someone like Ruchell McGee, who was not even convicted of murder. Not convicted of murder. If he was convicted like the regular person convicted of kidnapping, like he was convicted of kidnapping, and he's been in prison over 50 years, half a century. And they said, well, he has a record. Yeah, he has a record based on what happened in Mississippi, or was it Louisiana? One of those old racist states where that conviction probably should be vacated. But nobody has sought, the Attorney General has not seen fit to have him released. The DAs, these liberal progressive DAs in Los Angeles and up north, haven't seen fit to do anything to have him released. So this because everybody know, well, not everybody, but a lot of people know what COINTELPRO is. People get stuck with this term. And so now, it's like enemy of the state, right? With Will Smith.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, they know everything. Well, actually they don't. Right. But if you look at enemy of the state, you think, wow, these people, and The Siege with Denzel Washington, you see all this technology being used. Well, a lot of that is fantasy. Some of the technology that's being used now is worse. It's worse. The use of DNA, the use of tracking devices, the use of I had a case where my client was accused of attempting to bomb Hitler's birthday party.
Okay.
In Orange County. They surveilled the little chat that he was a part of. They followed him from Long Beach to all the little churches and parties he was going to in Orange County. And ultimately they said, he's going to go to the Moose Lodge, where there was a planned Hitler's birthday party, but it had been canceled. Everybody knew it was canceled. There's nothing to bomb. And they tailed him, and then he was going towards the Moose Lodge, and he went right past the Moose Lodge. Probably like, is there anybody out there? No. Okay. And imagine if he had gone, because I saw the videos. He was um, trying, well, actually before the time, when these Nazis found out that it was canceled, they gathered in the parking lot and they're shooting the breeze or whatever, and then they left. And these two little skinny white boys who were anarchists, are they gonna roll up on these Nazis who kill?
Right.
Because I think these Nazis are worse than the Klan. They kill crazy. They kill each other. Those people are crazy. What was he gonna do? Especially with a plastic bottle, because they say he filled a plastic bottle with gasoline. Okay, that's not how you make a Molotov cocktail.
Right, that's right.
Right? You throw it, it would have what? Bounce.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to explode.
Yeah, no.
So even back then, like in the early early 2000s, they tried to and his name was Rampage, right? And they were spying apparently on the defense team. One time I got a call from the sheriffs and they said, hey, we got word that there's going to be an attack on the courthouse. There ain't going to be no attack on the courthouse. There's going to be some kind of disturbance in there. Said they are not, it ain't going to happen. Because they were acting up like anarchists do. And people were getting arrested in the court. I was like, you want to get this guy free, or do you just want to use this as some kind of platform? And they all fell in the line.
Right.
I said, there is no, I mean, they called me at home. I was like, what are you disturbing my weekend with this bullshit? Now, was there? No. There was no attack. There was no disturbance. They sat in the courtroom quietly for months. But the prosecutor's like, you need to do a loyalty oath to the United States as an attorney. That's not the only time I've been told that. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
They look up my background.
The loyalty oath, yes.
Yeah, loyalty oath to the United States? Go to hell. But that's one. They track things on the internet. And they've been doing that when what were they called? Bulletin boards or something? Before email, before instant messaging, before social media.
Yeah, bulletin boards and chat rooms.
Yeah, and chat rooms. So, but now, of course, the government has basically passed legislation and cajoled these social media companies where there's always a back door. It's like you think that WhatsApp is secure, but there's a back door. And I just what was it? Which organization? It might have been the APSP, African People's Socialist Party. But there was some, or it might have been these people at the Capitol on January 6th. You know, they're on the news. They're reciting what they said in their WhatsApp. So all those little, oh yeah, it's confidential. It's what do you call it?
Encrypted.
Encrypted. Yeah, it's encrypted until it's not.
Until it's not, right. Right.
They being able to track, you can watch Forensic Files and get a lot of this stuff. Tracking cell, where are you? In fact, I've used that technology when Tasha was threatening Taco, and I'm trying to figure out how these people are all around my house.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out they had their, what is that, location on Facebook, and they're at a house right around the corner,
Mm-hmm.
and they've taken a picture. And I was able to go right to the house around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
The say, well, I have a digital phone, not a cell phone, but a digital phone, 5G or 4G or whatever it happens to be. Well, there's a thing called the stinger,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
right? So it emulates a cell tower.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're making a call, before it gets to the cell tower, it goes through the stinger. And so you think, and then you're speaking in some kind of code. You know, the butter is on the bread.
Yeah.
You know, I got 10 cameras,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to leave 5 with you. It's like, really, to me, kind of almost childish.
Mm-hmm.
But there's the technology is so vast, and actually, can I put something up?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Let's see. Let me pull it up first. See, and this is where I thought, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, and I went to sleep. So I wasn't able to do a PowerPoint, but I did get some of that information down.
Okay.
So this is where we are in terms of using newborn genetic screening to search for suspects.
Wow.
Now, can you see that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can see your screen.
Let me spread it out. So, you know, just kind of like they found the Grim Sleeper. And, you
Mm-hmm.
know, whatever they use for regular criminal activity, called social criminal activity, they can use in political.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to know who said something or who did something, and you have somebody you suspect. Well, you do their if you get a hold of the DNA of the children, then you can find out who the parent is and where that came from. That's what happened with the Grim Sleeper, right? His son, he didn't have his DNA taken. It was his son's DNA
Right.
that led them to him. So, okay, this radio frequency identity chips. You know, you think of, you know, they're going to put a GPS, and you know they'll put a GPS on a vehicle, and they can track whoever wherever they go. You know, GPS units, they're kind of big, right? Or they used to be. Well, now the same technology that allows you to go to the gas station and just pass your card over a reader,
Right.
they can stick on your car, on your jacket, which again, going back to Enemy of the State with Will Smith, he said, take off your clothes, take off your shoes, take off your watch. Well, that's real. So 2 primary areas where RFIDs, radio frequency identity chips, raise privacy issues. in retail and elsewhere in the commercial sector, and direct adoption by government. Possible for government, stores, hackers to identify people at a distance and without their knowledge. Now, remember, there was kind of a scandal, slight scandal with Walmart. They had trackers on their products, and they could see where you went in the store, and if you left the store with merchandise, and where did you go? So these things, they had nothing like this during COINTELPRO.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
A lot of human intelligence. It's not so necessary now. Might be
Right.
desirable, but not so necessary. Face recognition technology. Who's going in and out of a meeting? Who's going in and out of a consulate? Right? They could tell who's about to get murdered.
Mm-hmm.
They say, oh, how come he didn't come out? He went in, but he didn't come out. Khashoggi. Yeah, he went in, but he didn't come out. But face recognition, they could scan a group of people and pick out the face of the person they're looking for. Or they say, oh, you were near that that rally, you were near that bombing, you were near whatever. And we have your picture.
Mm-hmm.
Video surveillance. And that's an old time thing. I worked on this Jewelry Mart money laundering case, $1 billion case.
Mm-hmm.
James, excuse me,
Yeah.
we got half of your face. Something has happened with the angle of your camera. So
Oh,
you're slowly sinking.
oh, really?
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. So this, and again, this is old technology, except now, right? You can have almost microscopic cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And so this money laundering case, they had cameras outside the door and they put them inside the room. So people were videotaped or recorded, counting this $1 billion. They would ship money in, they could see. And then along with well, another case, I guess they were trying to get them to do something, a drug case in Venice. They had videos of people meeting. Like they follow them to the park and then they videotape them. And they didn't have sound that we knew of, but you could see who's associating with who. Now that was then. Now I'm pretty sure they could install a camera.
Mm-hmm. And super sensitive mics.
And super sensitive mics, parabolic mics,
Mm-hmm.
tiny itty bitty mics. And so, they would not only tap the phones, they would put microphones, bugs in the office.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they would have to have some kind of surreptitious entry, a black bag job, again, which these death squads were doing for the FBI in the 80s and the 90s. But now, and you have to hide it. But now, you don't have a big mic. You just have a little tiny thing. And one of the old technology, again, COINTELPRO technology, during that period, even though they're trying to make it seem like, the government knows everything, and even today, I'm pretty sure there are limits to technology.
Mm-hmm.
And like I have a fan on now, well, if I have the fan on too close while we're having a meeting on the phone, I can't hear, or people can't hear me, you know, the frequency is going to be thrown up. The, what do you call it? The sound frequency. So there are natural barriers to radio waves. For every advance, there are still problems. So no, they don't have to be able to listen to everything you say unless you're carrying around a bug, which.
Right.
But, and there's not so much need for human intelligence. They have drones now. They can follow you. They don't need to track you with a car. They just send a drone over. So people doing evasive driving maneuvers, you just, I think for the most part, I think it just makes you look guilty. So why are you driving like that? Look, you look guilty. So the subject engaged in evasive driving tactics. So we think he's employing that to avoid detection, blah, blah, blah. So this, but that the new technology has basically rendered the old standbys. Not to say that they've thrown all those away, but you can use a drone to follow someone. You don't have to get in a car and go right behind them. You could be on a side street and track someone. Right. So and even with the video surveillance, they kill people halfway around the world with drones. They don't have to be there.
Right. That's right. That's standard practice now.
Yes. Yes. And they've interviewed people. As a matter of fact, a member of the NAACP was in the Valley was recruiting for people. It's like a good job. I'm not gonna sit up and kill people from around the world.
Right.
While you're stationed in Nebraska or something. That's, you know, it's beyond unfair because so many people have been killed. Again, the guy said a tall guy dressed in white, and there were two guys that looked like they were bowing in front of him. So they thought it was Osama bin Laden and blew all of them up. Turns out it was a guy picking up recycling stuff.
Wow.
Again, these are all this great technology, right? Remember Desert Storm, and they were, oh yeah, we took out all the missiles.
Right, the smart bombs.
The Scuds.
Yeah,
we took out all the Scud missiles. Yay. And then the next day, choo, choo, choo. Oh, they just must have got a whole bunch of new ones because apparently you didn't get all of them.
Right.
But all this super technology, you can smart bombs and all that. Was that GO? Was it garbage in, garbage out? The technology is limited. It is very limited. And while it's advanced, again, having knowledge of it, like talking about it, like we're talking about, we can deal with it. So in this thing, how cops can secretly track your phone with stingray devices. So the DEA and the marshals were asked by the Justice Department to provide unspecified support to law enforcement during protests, Black Lives Matter protests. And they didn't say what form the support would take, but both the DEA and the marshals possess airplanes outfitted with stingrays or dirt boxes, technology capable of tracking mobile phones or, depending how they're configured, collecting data and communication from mobile phones in bulk. So, you know, this like the Arab Spring, all this organizing by tweets and Instagram. You know, they were doing that by remember, I can't remember the name, but there were some youngsters who were being attacked at some small town, who were arrested because they got in a fight with some white kids.
Was that Jenna?
Yes, the Gen 6.
Yeah.
And the radio stations organized the demonstration. Well, we
Right.
could do that by tweet. We could do that by Instagram. We could do that by Facebook. We could do that by Snapchat or whatever. They'll have a response, but as their technology advances, you say our technology advances.
Yes.
So, and our knowledge advances. So it's not like, oh my God, oh, the white man is God, and oh, the government, they know everything, and you may as well just give it up. Why are you going to struggle? You see what happened to the African People's Socialist Party. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not hopeless. It is not hopeless situation. And this is just a very small survey of the technology that's out there.
We have just a few minutes left, and want to open it up, particularly to Harakuti. If you have any questions, Harakuti, or Tasha, if you have a question, and you're muted, Tasha.
Harakuti, you need to unmute your audio as well. Actually, and humorously, James covered everything that I had on my little list, because I was going to be asking about those technologies, the Stingray, the tracking devices, the scanning of social media and those kinds of things. And so you organically moved right into that.
Yes.
And so, I mean, my concerns are, as they always are, particularly with, like, talked about the loss of institutional memory in talking about this, the Congressional Black Caucus involved with this malign Russian activities, in fact, authoring it and whatnot, and just like, and the loss of community memory. I'm always concerned about, how do we reintegrate and amplify, just continue to amplify this information effectively, and I think that a lot of it has to do with how we talk to friends and family as well. How do we move the information out of our bubbles into common parlance? I don't know exactly how that's done, but this stuff has got to be demystified.
Yes.
And or just kind of hush hush. My last comment is we were talking about the death squads back in the 80s and 90s. I was like, yeah, where were you when the death squads were there? And I was an 18-year-old kid listening to KPFK talking about the death squad.
Right.
And I turned that shit off and didn't turn KPFK back. I went to a couple of rallies. I went to some places, and then I started doing that,
Yes.
But
and that's what they want. That's
Absolutely.
exactly what they want.
Absolutely. Because also in isolation and without any political education, without any comradeship, without any context, it's just this, again, this kind of boogeyman under the bed effect, the not knowing what you're dealing with. Harakuti, you're going to have to unmute if you have some questions. Yeah, if you're still there.
Yes. Do you have a question, Harakuti? Because, just.
Maybe not.
Yeah, right. Just
In the
wanted
chat,
to give you
right?
the opportunity to ask if you did.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, is this going to be preserved for playback later, either on the Joko site or on YouTube?
Yes, it'll be on YouTube for sure.
Okay.
And the Joko Collective's channel, right? So Joko
Right.
Collective
On
YouTube.
Facebook, right?
On YouTube.
On YouTube. We would have to upload this recording, the Zoom recording, to Facebook, and that's a likelihood also, but it's on YouTube.
Okay.
And probably will be available shortly after. we are no longer live.
All right, okay. I heard you say before that, like, COINTELPRO is no longer in effect, but like, I mean, don't they have like, well, I mean, African People's Socialist Party and Black Lives Matter and any other like, progressive, like, Black organization in existence today. I mean, it may not be COINTELPRO as we know it, but like, isn't this like an updated version of COINTELPRO?
Well, because COINTELPRO, they had a specific way of doing things, and they were trying to test it out, and they were largely illegal. Again, those things that they did in COINTELPRO illegally, pretty much they can do legally now. There's no prohibition. They've been chipping away at this whole thing about assassinations. After COINTELPRO was revealed, and they were talking about the assassination of Martin Luther King, the assassination of Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, and these others, they say, oh, well, we don't want to assassinate. We follow the law. But if you look since 9/11, the restrictions on assassinations have been lifted. Right? And can you assassinate a U.S. citizen? Well, yes, you can.
Yes.
Can you lock somebody up without trial? Well, yes, they did.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Or taking them off to some black site in some foreign country.
Yes. Remember they had lured some so-called terrorist Palestinian. They broke his arms out in the sea. They kidnapped him, and they brought him to the United States. They called it extreme rendition.
Right.
The kidnapping. That's called kidnapping. That's piracy.
Right.
That's piracy. So those things that they were ashamed to do, that's ashamed to talk about during COINTELPRO, it's legal now. They don't think twice about it. Yeah, we killed them. Yeah, we killed everybody in the building.
Right.
Yeah. Well, they were alleged terrorists, and their friends do the same thing.
Right.
So I don't like that COINTELPRO, because the COINTELPRO, you think of people slinking around the corner and writing stupid letters to get people to fight. This is way beyond that. Way beyond that. Right? They might have a camera in your house. They might have a tracker on your car. They might have video at your job. In terms of human assets, it's pretty much the same. Like, was that? What was that? 9/11. When there was a cop, there was like a little group that got together, did cookies, and made anti-war signs, and then he was killed. They found out he was a cop.
Right.
Killed in a motorcycle accident. I mean, that's the same thing that happened in Los Angeles. Guys are like part of the Coalition Against Police Abuse in South Africa support committee, and a secretary of Coalition Against Police Abuse, and then they wind up getting found out. And not only are they in the organizations, they're on the team that's suing the LAPD for spying. So that really hasn't changed. Paying informants hasn't really changed. The technology has changed. The ground rules have changed. But if we keep talking about COINTELPRO, and then, number one, we date ourselves because, I talk to my students, they're like, what the who? Oh yeah, that's something that happened way back then. But ain't half as bad as it is now.
Right.
Not half as bad as it is now. Bad to us because we remember we were there, we saw it. half people don't even know who Malcolm X is. They don't know
Right.
that he was murdered. We still don't know which intelligence agency, even though
Mhm.
I know Army intelligence, and someone told me that. A woman told me that in college, said her father was with the Army intelligence, and he was sent to Memphis to watch Martin Luther King. And then I find out decades later that happened.
Mhm.
I was like, come on now, Army intelligence, why would they do that? Well, they did it.
But they did it.
I wish you know how much I regret that. Not asking more questions, not
Mhm.
delving deeper into that.
Mhm.
But we don't know. And these advances in technology, these advances in even human intelligence, right? Even the Black Riders got caught up with that. LAPD's posing as a Palestinian or Lebanese terrorist, say, you remind me of the brothers back home. You want to buy a machine gun?
Mhm.
And they were so like, number one, they didn't have no money. They couldn't buy a machine gun. But they still had to spend resources and time
Mhm.
fighting this case.
Right.
Right. And then they're used as a propaganda. Well, look, they were going to go in and shoot up police stations. No, they weren't. Those people in Chicago, no, where were they? Miami.
Mhm.
They wanted boots, right? They were trying to dress up like, Mujahideen or something. And they said, you want to blow up the Sears Towers or something in Chicago? It was all fake and phony. They wanted some damn boots.
Right.
But as their knowledge grows, our knowledge grows. And if we fall for those same old tricks, shame on us. Shame on us.
Right. Learn from the past,
Yes.
please. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, that's why I don't like using COINTELPRO.
Okay.
We know what it is. Youngsters don't. And if they look it up, they're going to be stuck with the knowledge of mid-century, mid 20th century technology
Mhm.
and methods.
Mhm.
And we can't afford to have people stuck in the 1970s and 1960s, 1950s.
Which is kind of interesting, just in terms of the kinds of things that are available on Netflix. That people are like, oh, look what they're doing and look what they're putting on Netflix. The kind of content about the era and about the malfeasance, of the state, including on some level, just came to mind, Judas and the Black Messiah. On a level, it raises interest, and it opens the question so we can, the community can be stimulated in the direction of getting more clarity and more understanding. But as you're saying, it's also anachronistic, not something that is telling us about it's not connecting any dots for us in terms of, say, the murders of the early murders of those the activists in Ferguson.
Right, exactly.
All over the place, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And it's not doing anything for again that community memory, that community just cognizance, so that's just a very interesting point. That's just a very interesting
maybe the makers of COINTELPRO 101 need to do a follow-up, right? A COINTELPRO 102 or 2.0.
Which interestingly, there are such things named, but I can't find the stream. Whereas for a while, COINTELPRO 101, that kind of.
And Kathleen Cleaver does make the point, right, in that documentary that the Patriot Act has legalized all that, right? She makes that point, right?
Yeah.
But that film now is several years old.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Right. So
yeah. The next, I was just going to say, that's the next question really for me. what is the stage set for now? Because people very much are not cognizant of what are the legalities, what can quote they legally do,
Ooh, that's a
Um,
whole nother conversation.
It's a whole nother
That's a
conversation.
whole nother conversation.
Absolutely.
But one thing that I will say is that we need to stop again thinking that this government is God and they know all, see all, like you can't move and it's doomed. You're doomed if you resist. And don't buy a 4K TV because they'll listen. They can listen to you. And if you get direct TV, they'll watch you through you need a camera to watch. Stop believing just fairy tales and bullshit. However, if you have a 4K TV, yeah, it's possible that they can hear what you're saying because there's that's built into the technology. But you know what I do? I turn that shit off. Just turn it off. You have a computer with a phone with a camera. I keep it covered. See, look, this is. Oh. I have a camera I cover up the camera that came on the computer. And I have a separate camera. And if I want to shut off the camera, I just close it like that. What's his name? What's his name from Facebook?
Zuckerberg.
I think it was Zuckerberg. Like somebody took a picture of him in his office or something. And he had that same little tape on his computer to cover up the camera.
Right. Yes.
If you can, and then going into people's computers. And then and that's again, that's a conversation we could have later. But there are these people who hack these scam artists in India. And they take over their computers. They erase their computers. They turn on their cameras. They can identify people. And these people shut down their entire building. Now, if some little hacker can do this for free, basically. The surveillance state with millions and billions of dollars at its disposal can do it probably 10 times better.
Yes. We are now 13 minutes over, and we can call it a night. But thank you, James. Right? Thank you for sharing that and putting it in perspective, right? And particularly putting the inadequacies of the technology and those who deploy it. Because yes, it's very easy to think of the U.S. state as infallible, or certainly at least as having this incredible reach into our lives. And even though they do, but it don't always work, right? And they don't always get it right, and they don't have the human body power, right, to watch as many people as they would like us to think they are watching and trailing and all that. You gotta, you need to come to their attention.
Yeah, don't do stupid stuff.
Don't do stupid stuff.
Don't say stupid things.
Right. And don't organize online, organize in person.
Yeah, and if you organize online, don't do it so it'll get you in trouble.
There you go.
Don't, fuck the pigs, I kill something. All that old crazy talk.
Yeah.
Right.
Stop dressing up unless there's a function for it. Like toy soldiers, like cosplay, as someone complained to me. So they say we're doing cosplay. Well, that's what it looks like. Walking around with a rusty gun,
right?
Marching around, talking about doing a Second Amendment march at the in Sacramento, so everybody can go to jail.
Right.
Mhm.
unless you have a toy gun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, extolling the virtues of the not fucking around coalition.
Right, right.
For what? Well, they got 1,000 people. Okay, and what do they do besides march around trying to look intimidating?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else.
Not a damn thing.
Yeah, yes.
And not to
Nothing else.
diminish everything they do. Like I said, the new Black Panther Party and the Guerrilla Mainframe, you know, I'm not enthralled with their work, but when these right wingers came to the Dallas mosque of the
Mhm.
Nation of Islam, they stood out there by the dozen and they left. Or they
Mhm.
never, if they got there, they just turned, they left. If they wound up, because they said, oh, these Negroes got guns. Wow. Well, okay. Even here, when the oath keepers who are now being prosecuted, their trial is
Mhm.
ongoing right now for January 6th. When they tried to come and intimidate Maxine Waters, LAPD told them, said, nah, you don't want to go over there. You don't want to go over there because, you know, there's gangs and there's all these radical Black people and communists. You may not want to go. And two of them with the giant American flag came anyway. They got their flag torn off. They got water thrown in their face and they skidded out of there.
Mhm.
So they might serve
Right.
a function,
Mhm.
but to just wholesale, that's all you do.
Right.
What do you organize to do? And then wind up shooting each other. I mean, shooting
right.
themselves and shooting each other. It's sad and pitiful. So don't do that.
So don't do that. Yes, what not to do.
Yes, what not to do. They look at some of these old heads who were there when it was like bad times. And fearless people who were still around.
Right.
And like Baba.
Mm-hmm.
Baba was one of those dudes. Baba was one of those dudes. And fearless.
Mm-hmm.
And skilled and experienced. I mean, you see Baba walking around all dressed in black and with boots on and stuff. Baba looked like a regular old man.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
that's an old man you don't want to fuck with, right?
Right.
You could talk to people like Baba. You could talk to some of these other folks who are around, who have skills,
Mm-hmm.
who organize in the South,
Right.
where it was really, really dangerous. It wasn't just a few FBI agents or LAPD.
Mhm.
It was the Klan and Nazis,
Mhm.
All the
people who
police.
was and police
Mm-hmm.
and those other elements.
And all these other private citizens.
Yes,
Right.
the Sovereignty Commission,
Mm-hmm.
the National States Rights Party, people who kill Black people on the regular,
Right.
Yes.
who somebody put those 17 Black bodies in that earthen dam where they found Cheney, Schwerner, and Goodman.
Exactly. Talking about death squads, right?
Yes.
That you know, death squads at work.
Yes. So, you know, if you're going to organize, shit, I mean, wouldn't it be better sometime to just blend in?
Yes. Those are great words to end on, right? That's some tactical advice.
Yes, tactical advice.
Tactical
Yeah,
advice.
I just wanted to say, James, man, thanks for doing that part on the assassinated African leaders. You know, a lot of people still don't know about, like, you know, those different cases.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, that, you know, they should, you know, because that same scenario could be repeated here, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, you know, there's a long list. And there's a long list, like we do the Martyrs Tour. Can imagine doing a Martyrs Tour in Mississippi.
Right.
Oh, man.
That
Right.
would be a Martyrs Month.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly.
And you still
Easily.
barely scratch the surface.
Scratch
Right.
the surface, right?
That's right.
Martyr retreat. Just you have to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks
Summer
for inviting
session.
me back. and
Every time.
we should do more of this again.
Yes.
Lots of
agreed.
knowledge out there. And like
Yes.
I said, when an elder dies, it's like a library burning down.
Mhm.
Right.
That's why
Right.
we're doing these oral histories. We
Yes.
need to do more of it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Get this information,
Absolutely.
put it down, and get it out.
And get it out.
Get it out.
Right on.
All right, y'all.
All right, y'all.
Thank you.
So